What's up everybody, Griffey here. Now let me start by saying, ranking movies is about as thankless and hard to win game as you could ever play. I have very serious respect for my friends at Looper when they made their list the 98 best movies of all time. That said, huge fail. You Googled a couple film school and European critic classics, you put Toy Story at number 18 best movie of all time, for the love of God. I would like to talk about one glaring omission in particular. My favorite movie of all time, Highlander.
Looper wishes to clarify that we do not endorse, support, or even comprehend some of the viewpoints expressed here. Griffey's love for this piece of crap is endearing, and we wanted to get it on video. Enjoy.
You cannot die, MacLeod. Accept it.
Every single year on my birthday, the first thing I do is I wake up and I have coffee and I watch Highlander. And every single time my kids say this movie stinks, I throw them out of the house and I cry by myself. I love the mixture of genres. And then the time travel aspects, the fantasy sword fighting aspects, there's magic involved. I think Highlander is that perfect chemistry set. Now this is a story about a species of immortal people that live amongst us. They look exactly like us. The problem is they can't die unless you separate their head from their shoulders. The movie follows Connor MacLeod in modern day New York, which is really 80s New York, at the time of the Gathering. The Gathering is a mythical time when all of the immortals left on Earth are called, nay, compelled to come to New York City. They can't not show up. And all of them must fight to the death by beheading for what is known as the prize. And at the end of the movie, we learned that the prize is essentially the ability to grow old and die like a normal person, father children, and be able to hear every single living thing at Earth at the same time.
I'm just like you. I can love and have children, live and grow old. You never prepared me for that, you Spanish peacock.
It seems like the worst prize in the history. I can't think, like if Neo just found out, hey, you just have a wife who works second shift as a welder and you're gonna have 4 kids that don't respect you, The Matrix isn't as good of a movie. But somehow for Highlander, it feels like a really earned and awesome prize. He falls in love with a reporter. He gets caught up in a possible murder under Madison Square Garden as a wrestling match ensues, and we watch him face down his greatest enemy, the Kurgan, right? Played by the great Clancy Brown, a giant leather-clad monstrosity, one of the greatest movie villains of all time, in my opinion. I love when the prostitute comes into Kurgan's room and he's just putting his sword together and she goes, hey baby, I'm Candy. And he goes, of course you are. And I was like, this is the best movie ever.
Of course you are.
I could just do Clancy Brown as Kurgan. That should just be my whole persona. Not this leftover Aquaman. So all of these things are happening at once to the absolute ripping score of Queen. I mean, if you have an entire soundtrack for your movie that's scored by Queen, you are already off to the races as far as making an absolute classic of a film, right? I know there's a lot of debate between movie fans whether Flash Gordon or Highlander has the better Queen score. It's not close. As they say in the movie, there can be only one. Highlander is so much better than the Flash Gordon score. Meet me in the comments. I don't even care.
People are asking about you. What am I supposed to say?
Tell them I'm immortal.
Highlander has the greatest transition game of all time. From an aquarium in New York City to underneath the water in a loch in Scotland, right? As we transition from scene to scene, the whipping back and forth between times and era in this movie is so smooth. It's so crisp. It's unbelievable how many movies you watch that have great scenes that do not stop and think about how those scenes transition and play together. You really can't undersell the kind of vibrance and energy that this movie finds between the sword fights, the taking of one's power, the Queen, and the transition game. This movie is an absolute missile of a narrative. Once this movie starts, it never slows down till the very end, and it's one of the most fun rides you can ever take.
You talk funny, Nash. Where are you from?
Lots of different places.
Christopher Lambert is not a great actor. Christopher Lambert was a pretty handsome actor, and he had a giant caveman brow that made it look like he was always confused by the modern day times and yearning for the days of old when he grew up near Loch Shiel, right, where he was born and raised. Christopher Lambert brings an absolute authentic befuddlement to Connor McLeod that becomes the cornerstone of the movie. This man who looks like he's had enough, that after hundreds of years, he just wants all of this to be over with. He's dressed like a flasher, wearing mom jeans and dad shoes, and somehow it just all works, right? Christopher Lambert has some of the funniest line deliveries of all time in this movie. His French trying to do English accent, even though he's a Scotsman. For instance, when he tells the cops that he thinks the man went to the garage and cut his own head off because he hates the wrestling.
He went down to the garage and in a fit of depression cut off his own head.
I don't know what the hell that is. I just know I love it, and I say it to my wife and kids all the time, and they get very mad at me.
Happy Halloween, ladies.
If we move on to Clancy Brown, now known today to kids as Mr. Krabs, which is one of the wildest career right turns of all time. He rides into the movie. The first thing we see is him atop a giant horse wearing skeleton armor as he goes in for the kill on Connor McLeod in an ancient sword-wielding battle, right? The best part of Clancy Brown's performance is it's really fun as we watch him realize that after all of these years of training and blood-soaked misery, he's about to win the prize. We watch Clancy Brown become an actual cartoon man. When he shaves his head and goes into the church and says, "Happy Halloween, ladies," right? It's great. But the Kurgan starting as this scary, physical, imposing, dark monster and turning into this absolute, kind of the judge from Roger Rabbit, is one of the most fun times you will have with a bad guy in an 80s movie.
If your head comes away from your neck, it's over.
Finally, we get to Sean Connery, who's just full swaggering Spanish peacock, as we find out later in the film. There's just so many scenes where Sean Connery is just on full charm offensive, right? Teaching Connor McLeod how to fight with swords, teaching him how to be a better lover. They have a very erotic scene where they learn to run on the beach and watch a deer's heartbeat, right? They learn how to run with the speed of a deer, I guess. He's the one real movie star that this movie has, and they get every last ounce of that out of him. His final battle with the Kurgan is one of the favorite moments I've ever experienced in any movie ever. I know everything! Highlander to me is the cinema of cool. It's when you put a bunch of weird things in a blender, spin it around, and somehow you get this absolutely amazing, ripping journey through hundreds of years of fun and game. Him holding Buttercup could make me cry standing right here. If you ever find me in a bar, 10 drinks in, there's a chance I might cry on your Hootie and the Blowfish style shoulder, telling you how much Buttercup meant to me.
Because I love you as much now as the first day we met.
So anyone who loves movies, has tried to write a movie, has ever wanted to make a movie or act in a movie, Highlander is that amazing example of something that becomes so much greater than its parts. There are certain movies you're watching and halfway through you realize there is a dark, crackling energy in this, right? I have stumbled onto something that is more than art. I've stumbled onto something that is more than a movie. That's what the Highlander does.
In the end, there can be only one.
I think we can all agree, as much as most of us like the Beatles, A Hard Day's Night is barely a film, right? If you want the Beatles, go to the record store. What I want is to kick that movie off the list and drop Highlander directly onto number 36. I think it's a place of honor amongst the greatest movies of all time, which it absolutely deserves. We also can just Google a lot of these other kind of film student choices and kick them out. How is RoboCop not on this list? How is Terminator 2 Judgment Day not on this list? This might have to become a whole series because I got a lot of beef to settle with this one. So here at Looper, there can be only one top 98 movies of all time list. I'm just doing my part to try to help make it the best version of itself it can be. And like every other thing in life, that means adding more Highlander.